Okay. All right, let me go over some of your comments on Proverbs, and then we'll get into the text. Really good comments. You guys are getting really good at this. I'm proud of you. Okay, Rivera. That's a great question, actually. Why is wisdom written in poetry, but the law is written in prose? Any ideas? Why that would be the case? Yeah. It's easier to memorize when it's in poetry, so you'd think that the law would be in poetry so we can memorize it better, right? No, blanking, yes.
I mean, the law is very direct and straightforward, and so it could be depicted with prose, with wisdom add
Mhm.
more nuances to it, I guess,
Yeah.
because it's more rooted in experience, and so that's maybe better conveyed through artistic expression,
Right,
poetry.
right. You don't want to be too artistic about the law because then people will be like, what does it mean? Should I kill? Are there moments? Right. So maybe, right? That could be one way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, like that kind of reminds me of the book of Job, whenever the first and last paragraph are in prose, and those are just really straightforward and not meant to really, there's no like room for interpretation, it just is what it is. And then the poetry part is where you have to like read between the lines and figure out what it's trying to say. So I think in this context, it's similar because the wisdom is kind of more fluid and
Yeah.
it's kind of just you have to read it correctly and interpret it to get the
Exactly.
most. But then the law is just the law.
You want it to be
Just-
clear,
yeah.
right? It's the point. Okay, good, good. Yeah.
Poetry is much more emotional than
Right. You don't want to get too emotional.
something, a whole sense of something in a different way.
Right. Very good. Okay, I hope this answers your question. Yeah. Okay, very nice. I need to speed through everything because I started so terribly late. Okay. Epstein, you mentioned it's an interesting contrast, how Solomon is different from usual Jewish text, which is more geared to a collective. Here it's geared to an individual. So you notice that the shift, that's a good point. And also the shift from commandments to advice, right? So this is kind of, you're noticing the shift from father's house to mother's house, law to wisdom. Nicely done. David Dove, why is a foreign woman bad, right? Good question.
No, not necessarily that. Why are those
Yeah.
specific traits?
Yes,
Because
exactly.
in the context of, say, a proselyte, like those would be great traits, like, oh, you've abandoned all these false
Right.
people.
Right, very good, right? Why is she depicted in this way? And even the biblical text agrees with you that, when the book of Ruth is written or when the Song of Songs is coming, you have a foreign woman who is depicted differently as someone we should go to, listen to, right? Someone who brings blessings instead of cursing. So some people would agree with you in the text.
I think she had a good answer though. So.
I think, the use of English of the word far is wrong. I think the real implication here is that she's foreign to you, the person, the young man, because she's somebody else's wife, so she's off limits.
Got it.
So that it all has to do with the sexuality,
Got
and
it.
seductress and stuff like. But it's sometimes it's a strange, not that she's strange weird, but
Yeah.
there's a barrier here.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, that certainly explains it. Both Kaplan and Michael have an excellent question, which we'll talk about at the end. Why is wisdom depicted as a she, right? Why they pick woman to embody wisdom? And we're going to talk about that a bit. And then Suresh, you have the notion of the hatred of knowledge, which here the fool is hating knowledge. And later you're going to notice, interestingly, in the book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon's going to start hating knowledge too. So he's going to move, right, from this where only the fool hates knowledge to his own self, right? Later, he's going to end up hating knowledge. So that's an interesting development you'll notice. Okay, sorry. I could have gone on and on, but we need to enter the text. So all right, so let's begin. I have two sections here. This first one is about, I called it the goddess and the king. And then next time we meet, it will be the wife and the husband. So but this time we will focus on the goddess and the king. So we saw, right, we talked last time about wisdom. Let me make sure I have it here. Yeah, about wisdom having the traits of a woman, right? And I introduced wisdom, I introduced mother's house, elements of the book of Proverbs. Today, we're going to zoom in on this feminine aspect of wisdom. And what's interesting is when you start to look at how Solomon is depicting wisdom, she ends up resembling the goddess Maat. So we're going to talk about this. This is the Egyptian goddess Maat. And so it's going to be interesting to investigate what Solomon is doing. Why? So first of all, how wisdom is looking like this goddess, and then why? Why does he want to bring Ma'at into this story, right? So let's look at that a little bit. So so I will introduce you now to this goddess. I haven't yet found any primary text about her like I did for Inanna, right? I'm still looking. But so for now, I just have to give you some, quick definitions. So first of all, Ma'at is the goddess of order versus chaos. And she's associated, and you're going to start to recognize and remember these texts in the book of Proverbs, but she's associated actually with creation. Her father, Ra, R-A, the creator, brings her onto the scene right away as he's creating the universe, right? And she's the one, in fact, who is in charge of the cosmic order, of ordering the world from chaos to order. So so she's right there present with the creator God. She's present from the onset, and she's the one to whom he delegates the task of ordering the universe. Right now, this should ring a bell right away in the book of Proverbs. Does anybody remember something similar in the Lady Wisdom in the book of Proverbs where she is also in this position? Anybody remember? Let me also find it. Go to Proverbs 8. Tell me what you see. Tell me where. Okay, in the interest of time. Proverbs 8, verse 22. Let me start reading. And you're going to see very strange, really almost the same scenario, right? Look at this. The Lord created me at the beginning of his course, at the first of his works of old. So as God is creating, she's the first one there, right? In the distant past, I was fashioned at the beginning, at the origin of the earth, when there was still no deep, when I was brought forth. By the way, brought forth here has the notion of a birthed, as though the God births wisdom. Right, so this is exactly the same as the god Ra, who brings forth Ma'at, right? She's the daughter, and here also the daughter, wisdom is the daughter of God. Then she continues, no springs rich in water, before the foundation of the mountains were sunk, before the hills I was born. He had not yet made earths and fields. I was there when he set the heavens into place, when he fixed the horizon upon the deep, and on, right? And then she continues that I was with him as a confidant. Some people say as a craftsman, as a craftswoman, a source of delight every day, rejoicing in this inhabited world, finding delight with mankind. Okay, so very similar. So you read this and you see a clear connection here between Lady Wisdom in this text and the goddess Ma'at, who is also present in the origin of time, creating alongside the highest god Ra. Any questions on that? Make
Can you
sense?
say what line this is in?
This is all chapter 8, verse 20. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, for
22 to 31.
Thank
you. Yeah, that's the passage where you will see the traits of Maat, right? In Lady Wisdom. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, second element about Maat is the notion that she is the goddess of justice, right? And this is also very important. And yes, exactly. I'll talk about that. She's depicted as wearing a feather, and we'll talk about this feather in a bit, right? She also has two wings sometimes, right? So so you might have seen her, right? So goddess of justice. In other words, so it makes sense, right? Because we know this already from the book of Genesis. Without justice, the world reverts back into chaos. We know this in Hebrew thought, in Greek thought. All of these ancient worldviews believed that when the world loses the sense of justice, the forces of chaos come back. It's as though the world is decreated, right? What holds the world in order, right? What protects the cosmic order of things is not, you know, gardening or whatever, right? Or magic or religion or piety. It's justice, right? So we would think that our prayers hold the world together, or our praise, or, you know, studying, but it's actually not that. According to the ancient cultures, is the justice, which if we are a just society, the society remains ordered and the forces of chaos are held at bay. But the moment we lose our sense of justice, the moment oppression takes precedence, the moment you have a lot of, you know, oppression and injustice, then at the same time, you make the society vulnerable to the forces of chaos, right? It's interesting because the movie No One Left Behind, have you seen it? I mentioned it. It's a great movie about the end of America. So watch it. It's recently come out with what's this actress, the pretty one from Pretty Woman, Julia Roberts, and the guy who played this the pianist. Wait, the one who was a pian, he didn't play the pianist, the Nazi movie, but the American movie. He was a pianist. Anybody remember that one? Okay, no, it's okay. So check out that movie about the end of America. One of the interesting ideas of that movie is that it's not going to be outside forces that invade us, like we fear China or Russia. It's not going to be people, you know, waging war with weapons against us. We're going to implode, the movie says. In other words, there will be so much strife within us, so much civil unrest, that somehow we will destroy ourselves from within. And once we get to that point of civil unrest, outside forces, we will become vulnerable to outside forces, not because we're weak militarily, but because we are weak, but because there is so much infighting and lack of justice within. You follow me? So in a way, the idea in that movie, and watch it, it's a very interesting idea, is the fact that losing justice makes us vulnerable to the forces of chaos, right? Which then come and pour into the land, right? So that's kind of the idea. And you have this in Greek philosophy, you have this in the Hebrew context, right? You have this idea that forces of chaos have been pushed aside when the creator created the world, but they will come back the moment that we lose the sense of justice, right? And so, of course, Proverbs is also about justice, right? You can look here on Proverbs 1. I think Epstein mentioned that in his paper, chapter 1, verse 3. Right, he explains, right, that the wise man. Okay, so this is about learning wisdom, right? Chapter 1, verse 2, acquiring discipline, righteousness, justice, equity, right? These are the goals of the book of Proverbs. So again, you have the face of Maat, kind of, you can perceive it behind this scenario, right? This is about justice. This is about teaching someone to be righteous, to be just, to be balanced, right? So very similar idea. She's just a little more about Maat as the goddess of justice. She's also the goddess of judgment. We're going to see this is going to become more important in the book of Ecclesiastes. And this is the story that some of you know about Ma'at. So in Egypt, what really mattered for the Egyptians was the afterlife, right? And not everybody had access to it. What happened when you died is, you know, the gods would surround you, your corpse, and take out your heart. And then they would weigh your heart. So Ma'at would step in and take out her feather. There would be like what do you call those? A balance? A scale, thank you. You put the heart here and then the feather on the other. And if your heart was very sinful, well, it would weigh down and the feather would be lifted up and then you don't go to heaven, right? But if your heart was pure, it would be, you know, right there and you'd make it in, right? So that's how she would determine. She was the one who determined whether you deserve, whether you had been just, whether she was the judge, right? She was the goddess who was in charge of judgment at the end of times, based on your just actions, right? During your life. So we see that here a little bit. When we get to the book of Ecclesiastes, we're going to see kind of the disappearance of Ma'at. If you know book of Ecclesiastes, you see already what I mean, right? Okay, any questions on that? Any comments before I continue to the third attribute of Ma'at? Okay, last thing, very similar to Inanna, Ma'at was the goddess of the king. She's the one who gave the king authority to rule. She was the one who gave the pharaohs the authority and the wisdom to rule. And we saw that with Inanna also, right? Inanna, once you are intimate with Inanna, you as a king, or you become king, right? You become enthroned. That is your enthronement, and you receive, right, the symbols of power. Remember when Gilgamesh had his encounter with Inanna, she gave him two elements, right? She gave him the puku and the miku. Do you remember this? Which represents, people have trouble translating it, but they say, okay, it's probably a ring and a rod, right? Symbols of kingship, of authority. Same thing here. You have something very similar. Most of the images of Maat show her holding it looks like this a little bit. It's like a kind of key of life. It's something like that. This is a symbol of life. So, yeah. Did I draw it wrong? Did I draw it wrong? It has a cross
Has a
too.
cross at the
Thank
top.
you. Okay, here's a cross. Thank you, guys. Is that it? Is that it? Very good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, forgot the cross. Sorry. Okay, so that's a symbol of life. So she holds that in one hand, and in the other, she holds also a rod, right? A kind of scepter. So very similar, right, to what Inanna gives Gilgamesh, right? She's the symbol of authority of the king. And so so now if you go to the book of Proverbs, watch this. Proverbs 3, verse 16. No, first, Proverbs. Oh, they're both there. Okay. Yeah, Proverbs 3, verse 16. I'm reading. So talking about wisdom, right? Where's verse 16? Yeah. In her right hand is length of days, talking about Lady Wisdom, right? In her right hand is length of days, in her left, riches and honor. Here you have also an illusion, right? Just like Ma'at has in the case of Ma'at is the left hand that she has life, right? Here it's in the right hand, she has length of days. And then in the left, riches and honor. And Ma'at in her right hand, so they're flipping it. In her right hand, she has the scepter, which is a symbol of authority, right, of wealth, of kingship. So here you could read this passage really as alluding back, right? Solomon has in mind, he visualized, he has a visual of Ma'at as he's writing this text and describing the features of Lady Wisdom, right? And then it continues, her ways are pleasant, her paths are peaceful. And where is this passage? By me, kings reign and princes, blah, blah, blah. I wrote the wrong reference. I have 3. Oh, no, Proverbs 8. Yeah. Go to Proverbs 8. And that's where I have this. And then I'll give you an interesting detail there, which is very important. So Proverbs 8, 15. Through me, so Lady Wisdom is speaking, through me kings reign and rulers decree just laws. Through me princes rule, great men and all the righteous judge. And by the way, the word for through, so this is verse 15b. It's the same preposition as where?
In Genesis, where it says through your husband.
Exactly. So this is a very important tool that I'm going to use when I do my paper, right? That when it says your desire for your husband and he will rule over you, it's a preposition b, which is the same here. This is b, Hebrew, right? Okay, this preposition translated over in Genesis 3:16, and he will rule over you. Here, the same preposition, rule through, right? He will rule through you. Do you see what I'm saying? So when you go back to, so if you read this, you go back to Genesis 3:16, your desire for your husband, and he will rule through you. It becomes very interesting. Are you seeing what I'm saying? Right, that's it just changes the whole, it illuminates the text in a very different way once and you have actual textual here, you have a different use of b that scholars have not noticed up until now. They always see it's over, and this is one of the only instances when it's through, and it just transfigures Genesis 3:16. Are you as excited as me? Like you're seeing this? Yeah, but whatever. But
Where in Proverbs does Solomon talk about them having something on one hand and something in the other?
this is 3 verse 16. Yeah, 3 verse
I mean,
16.
that's what the princes rule and righteous. Is there anything where it talks about them like holding something in a hand or?
Yeah, long life is in her right hand and honor in the other. This
Yeah.
is Lady Wisdom. That's in Solomon. What's your question?
Where can I find that quote in Proverbs? Is that anywhere?
Chapter
Proverbs
3.
3:16.
Oh, 3:16.
Chapter
Okay.
3.
Yeah, Proverbs 3:16. Oh, sorry, so you were thinking Genesis. Is that Proverbs
Yeah,
3:16?
I was looking at Proverbs 8.
Yeah. Proverbs 3. So Proverbs 8 is when by me kings rule, blah, blah, blah. But Proverbs 3:16 is hope, like long life in her right hand, honor in the other, right? So you can see, right, again, right, Ma'at's face is shining through these things. So we can conclude already from all of these little clues, right? That we are dealing here in the book of Proverbs, right? The Lady Wisdom is depicted with the face, right? The face of the goddess Ma'at is shining through, right? We have to ask ourselves why, right? What is happening? Why is Solomon, right, why is he alluding to the goddess Ma'at as he is writing? Now, it's interesting because not only Ma'at shines through, but God also shines through. There is a kind of a, you have the Lady Wisdom, Ma'at, and God superimposed. Watch this. Well, the main one for me, of course, where I see the kind of the God of Israel now also shining through. So it's kind of like, what do you say when you who is in science, or you're in science, right? When you have like tack, tack, and tack.
Superimposed.
Yeah, like, but what, like
That's what-
like in science when you superimpose and you see everything at the same time.
I mean,
Like you see that and then that and then that. You see all three at the same time, superimposed. Oh, there's a word for that somewhere.
perspective.
No, not perspective. It's okay. You know what I mean. So you have kind of this merging, right? Of the main one is here, Proverbs 128. And you'll recognize if you're familiar a little bit with the Hebrew Bible. It's taking so long to turn these pages. 128. Where it says, so Lady Wisdom here is saying, then they shall call me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me, but not find me. If you know the Hebrew Bible, where can you find this passage and who is saying it?
Lamentation.
Okay, yes, and who is speaking?
Prophet.
About,
Charles, help me out here. Not a prophet. Or is it a prophet? It is a prophet.
the prophet is saying, they will call me and I will not answer. They will seek me and not find me. And the prophet is saying that.
Oh, no, okay, so this would have to be from the perspective of God, so not Lamentations.
No, I think it is one.
It could be.
God in Deuteronomy, possibly.
God, no, not in Deuteronomy. I don't, maybe I'm writing it down. Anybody else? Where have we heard this? They will call, but I will not answer. They will seek me, but you're hearing it, right? You've seen this before. Here are some of the references that I found. There might be more. Jeremiah 33:3. Go there and read for me. I'm not going to look in this Bible. I can't find anything. Somebody look up Jeremiah 33:3.
What's the line in Proverbs? That one.
This is chapter 1, verse 28.
Mhm.
They shall call me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me, but not find me. This is Lady Wisdom speaking. In other passages in the Hebrew Bible, God is saying this, right? Look up, where am I? Jeremiah 33, verse 3. Who has it?
That's it.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
They call to me and I will answer you and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know.
Exactly, right? God is saying, call to me and I will answer you. So here you have the same, right? The same two verbs of calling and answering, right? Except here, he's begging, call to me and I will answer you. Lady Wisdom has already given up. Like, you will call and I will not answer. Yes, go ahead. What do you see?
And you shall seek and find me.
Ooh,
And when you shall search for me with all your heart.
very nice. Jeremiah 29:13. Is that it?
29.
15. Okay.
No, 13.
13. 29. Okay, excellent. You're right. You will seek. Say it again.
And you shall seek me and find me when you shall search for me with all your heart.
Okay. Same idea, right? They will look very nice. So here God is still a little optimistic. Somebody look up Isaiah 65, verse 24. And also Isaiah 55, somebody else, verse 6 to 9. So I need 65, 24, and then 55, verse 6. Tell me what you see.
What was the first one?
Isaiah 65, 24. Who's ready? Epstein, go ahead.
Before they pray, I will answer. While they are still speaking, I will respond.
Okay, again, this notion of call and answer, right, which is very typical of the God of Israel. Do you have the other one?
The other one.
65:24. Anybody have 65:24?
Not the one
That
we
was
just read.
65.
Oh, okay. All right, 55, 6 to 9. 55, 6 to 9, whoever has it. Go ahead, Epstein. Sorry, Suresh. Okay, Suresh, go ahead.
Seek ye the Lord while he may be found, call ye upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way and
You good.
unrighteous.
Okay, good. And you have a really old translation. Seek ye the Lord. Okay, the old English. Okay, very good. Okay, I think you get the point, right? When you see this, immediately, if you're familiar with these prophetic passages, you're like, oh, so now we have Lady Wisdom, Ma'at, and the God of Israel. What is Solomon doing? So tell me a little bit, what do you think he's trying to do here by merging all of these
Is
faces?
he writing like in direct influence like with his friends?
For sure, yeah. I mean, remember, he was married to Pharaoh's daughter. He's certainly traveled to Egypt and studied in Egypt, right? So he is extremely familiar and well-versed with Egyptian worldview, philosophy, language. You see here a lot of Egyptian expressions, idiomatic expressions. For example, under the sun, that's not a Hebrew expression. But you find this in Egypt. Over and over again, this expression is used in Egypt. So he is definitely, we know that, right? But why does he decide that he's going to bring in Ma'at, merge her with the God of Israel, and make the whole thing packaged into the persona of Lady Wisdom? What's the intention? Yes.
I just had a question. So like this like idea of calling and answering that's popping up, what does that have to do with Maat? Like, where?
Nothing. This is now the God of Israel entering the scene. That's not Ma'at anymore.
Okay.
We've seen Ma'at,
Yeah.
but then the same Lady Wisdom who you looked like Ma'at, all of a sudden now, boom,
Yeah.
add the features of the God of Israel. Now I want you to imagine the finished product, right? What's he doing? Why is he doing that? Oh, that was not a hand. Okay. Why is he merging the God of Israel with Ma'at? That's, God forbid. What's he doing? Why is he doing that? What's the point?
Maybe it's to say that wisdom is an aspect of God.
Okay, but why Ma'at? I'm curious. I get that wisdom is an aspect of God. He could have said that without bringing in Ma'at. So you think it'll come. Yes.
I think also it could be to show that wisdom is a fusion of ideas. It's not just either from Israel or from Egypt or whatever.
So God is a fusion of gods.
Well, no, but like wisdom itself is a fusion of.
Okay, okay. That's good. That's good. But it's dangerous when you add God there, because then God becomes a
I
fusion.
think he was saying. I think he's saying that maybe wisdom is similar to goddesses, but not God himself.
But that's what I meant here in this text.
Oh.
When she says that, she looks, I mean, immediately you see the God of Israel there, right? When she's saying, when they call me, I will not answer. They will seek me, but not find me. The person who says this over and over again in the prophets is God. So now she's speaking like, she looks like God now. But you see, tak, right? Lady Wisdom, Ma'at, God. Why? What's he doing?
She's different. She's not, God will wait, has the patience to put up with the person who doesn't respond, who's not listening yet.
Ah, she's impatient.
But she's saying, you know, I talked to you and you just kind of like, you just blew me off.
Yeah.
So, you know what?
A little more
You're a dump,
impatient.
And I don't have to put up with you because you're a dump.
You're right. She's a little more impatient than God, right? It's a good point. Nevertheless,
She's not trying to
yeah.
woo you.
okay. That's true. She's like, and then she continues. She gets really into it. Like, she's like, they shall eat the fruit of their ways and have their fill. How does she goes on and says, oh, I don't know. She she doesn't have any patience. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the only answer I could think of is it's a reference to like the origin of the Israelites because they came from Egypt, and so it's commenting on the culture and saying, look how Egypt was judged, and look at the gods that they viewed. We're judging them. Our God is truly the judge, and he judges us.
Incorporates Ma'at, or our God is, or Ma'at is our God in a way. So he's taking the highest deity of Egypt and saying, actually, that's God. Maybe you could say that. Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else? So here's one way to see it, right? That I'm seeing. first thing I'm seeing is the feminization of God in this whole passage, which I find very interesting, right? Because if it was just Lady Wisdom, an attribute of God, right? Meaning Lady Wisdom is just an attribute of God and it's just a facet of God, it's not God, right? That's okay. But here we have this real personification, right? In the sense that wisdom takes on the traits of God, as though he is saying God also has a feminine figure, right? There's also, God is not just masculine as we have been taught, there is also a feminine version of God himself. And of course, he uses the goddess Maat to emphasize, right, this feminine character. Perhaps that's one way to see it. Or remember, he's writing beyond the Hebrews, right? Remember, his target audience is not the Hebrews. You remember this, right? Solomon, he's writing for the nations. So he will borrow the concepts of Maat, right? So that imagine an Egyptian audience is reading this, right? Not just the Hebrew audience. They begin to understand, right? That Ma'at is simply one of the faces of God, right? In that sense, right? That God, that the Ma'at that they worship is in fact the very God of Israel, perhaps, right? You could say he's merging. I mean, there's really a desire of how do you call this? What the Catholic Church is doing all day long? Yeah. There's an ecumenical, right, intention here. It seems like, right? They kind of saying, this God you have been worshiping is right. You can perhaps, it's tricky, right? It's dangerous what he's doing. Ecumenical intention is also dangerous, but if he's talking to an Egyptian audience, maybe they will have here an entryway into the religion of Israel, right? He's basically saying these feminine goddesses, right, are contained within our God, right? God also has a feminine side, appealing to that. Okay, so and so that's the first thing I'm seeing, right? The feminization of God, which I find interesting, which is legit. Remember, this is not far-fetched. Remember that in Genesis 1, when God creates the human couple, he says, God created the man and the woman. In his image, he created them, right? So meaning that God has both elements of masculinity and femininity, or beyond, right? But he encompasses both. So it is not far-fetched once we have traveled a long way with the masculine God to then remind people, well, God also has feminine attributes, right? And we see this throughout the prophets. God is, compared to a mother. God is compared to a chicken. God is compared, right, who gathers her young. God is breastfeeding. God is, right, all kinds of things. God has a womb, right? So here he's perhaps, trying to emphasize the feminine aspect of God in order to counterbalance the masculine aspect of God. Are you following me on that? Does that make sense? Good. So now the second thing I think that becomes interesting, this is where a discussion can become fascinating, is why does he choose? So when he's talking about Ma'at, and now maybe we understand why he brings in Ma'at, right? Because what he's really saying when he introduces Ma'at as kind of, part of this divine revelation of God, is really that the king cannot reign without who? God, right? This is what is going on, right? He's basically saying that the king, just like in Egypt, the king needs Ma'at to have authority to reign correctly. Solomon is making the point here very powerfully. The king of Israel needs wisdom, or i.e. God, the feminine face of God, in order to rule adequately, right? And this was certainly an idea that was developed in the books of the kings, that the king, to truly be king, right, had to pay his respects or surrender or submit to the God of Israel, right? There was a clear when the kings were established in the land of Israel, two things. One thing they were given one thing. After they were told, don't have too many horses and too many wives, there was a third thing that they were given to remind them what it's like to be a king here in this nation. What is the only gift that was given to the king as he was being enthroned? Anybody remember? Yeah.
The scroll.
A scroll of the law,
And
right?
he wasn't given the scroll, he
You're
had
told
to
to
write it.
You have to write it. Yes, that's even better.
And it's also the last
You have to
commandment
copy
given
it. Yeah. Oh, very nice. Where? Last commandment given where?
in the The,
Oh, no way. Okay, do you have it's Deuteronomy? The
Yeah.
last?
since Deuteronomy,
Okay, I'm writing down.
specific commandment.
Oh, nice. Okay, thank you. Okay, great. Yes. So he had not only to read it, he had to copy it, meaning really, really assimilate it. Why? Because he had to understand he has authority, but he will only have authority if he is, how do you put it? Subject to a higher authority. There's an expression, a funny expression. We 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 answer to a higher authority, right? He answers to a higher authority. The king has authority only in as much as he answers to a higher authority than himself. That is the lesson here. That is why Maat is introduced, to make the point. Kings, listen carefully. Remember, this is a book written for the king, for the successor, for the one who will be king, right? If this is Solomon writing this, he's writing to his son. He's writing to who? The future king of Israel. And so he's trying to tell him, just like the Egyptians understood rightly and correctly that the king cannot rule without the goddess Ma'at, without the divine element, the divine feminine, you also need to remember to rule correctly. You need to connect to the God of Israel, to the divine feminine, right? To Lady Wisdom. Then you will rule correctly. You need to remember, yes, you are the highest authority in the land, but only because you have a higher authority than yourself that you listen to and obey. Shema means both. Shema, remember, we talked about that last time, means both to listen and to obey, right? So do you understand now why Ma'at is introduced? He's in a way, by introducing Ma'at, he's broadening the role of wisdom beyond just living a good life and being just. He's introducing Ma'at because precisely of her role in the royal court of Egypt. And what he's trying to do is, let's have the same thing. We ought to have the same thing here in Israel, that the king needs the connection to the divine feminine in order to rule correctly. Are you following? Are you with me, everybody? Okay. Now, it's interesting because one of the most beloved kings of Israel, King David, right, his father, really had this notion of Shema, right? And I'll write it down just to remind you of that word, right? Here, right? To hear or to remember, that's the key word of the book of Proverbs, Shema. Listen or obey. This is right, only the one who is capable of listening to a voice other than his own, to the voice of the divine feminine, to the voice of the Lady Wisdom or the goddess or feminine embodiment of God. Only such a king will have wisdom and therefore authority. King David really illustrates this very beautifully. Can anyone tell me how King David was the perfect king? Yes. In the sense that is taught here, right? Of course, he made some mistakes, but in the sense here, in terms of wisdom, why was King David the perfect king? Even the Talmud talks about David in that way. There's a beautiful passage in, I forget which tractate. I'll bring it next time. What was so special about King David? Even though he made a lot of mistakes, and he killed a lot of people, there was something that was a feature. Yeah, but why? What was so special about him that none of the other kings ever had after him, except maybe Solomon?
His repentance.
It's connected to what? His repentance. What brought about his repentance?
His fear and understanding of God.
But how did it look? What did it look like? How do we know?
He always obeyed God.
Very good. Not only that, King David was capable of listening. Look, we're going to study this next time. The first time he is saved by listening. Anybody remember? He was about to do something terrible, lose his whole, that's before he is king. He's about to commit a crime. Because of his ability to listen, he's turned away from this action, and then the path to kingship opens up and speeds up for him. Anybody remember? He's about to commit bloodshed. He's stopped by who? Huh? A woman, Abigail, right? Stopped, listens to her, and right, and we'll study this text actually next time, right? So first, we see already there he's a man who is able to tune in, right, to the feminine, able to listen. Next time we see David listening is where, as you were there, before he repents. Who does he listen to? Prophet Nathan, right? Nathan comes in. gives him he has just killed Bathsheba's husband, right? He's married Bathsheba. He's, living the high life. This prophet comes in and destroys him, annihilates him, and he listens and repents, right? And then much, much, much later, when is the last time he listens and secures the fate of Israel?
When God tells him not to build the house of God.
Oh,
and
that too.
Benjamin's house Because he has too much blood in his hand.
That's true. That yes,
Leave it for his son.
he leaves it to Solomon. That's that. Yeah, I forgot about that. That's listening to God. I'm talking more about, well, yes, that's good, but I'm talking more about listening to other people. Who is the last person he listened to?
Is when he agrees to make us Solomon king.
Yes, he listens to Bathsheba again, or once. No, that's it, just once, and makes Solomon and secures, right, this the reign of wisdom, right? So we have here really with the King David, we have the prototype, the highest prototype of what it means to be king in this, as Solomon is describing, right? To be a king, to have authority, means you're humble enough to listen. That's what it means, right? The true kingship, true royalty, true authority, and true power is humility, is the humility to listen and to listen to something outside of yourself and to listen to something above of yourself. This is why the favored animal of the king that the king would ride on when he came in triumphant into the city was what? What animal did the king ride in the ancient Israel?
Donkey.
Yes, why? I know it's tempting to say. I love donkeys. No, it's not because of the long ears. I like it though. I like it.
It's the biblical story of talking donkey.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. I don't think it is, but that's a good thought. Yeah.
They physically short.
Yeah.
Not so tall on it.
Mm.
It's a more humble animal.
Yeah.
It's an animal that poorer people have. not the
Yes.
horses.
It's the animal of the poor, right?
You'll
You
look
got
at
it.
the ground as you're coming in.
Exactly. Exactly.
You're affiliating with the
Low,
general
right?
population. in a way,
Exactly.
Not just the aristocrats.
Very good. Instead of riding a horse, which they had, right, and being high above the crowd, he's riding the lowly donkey, right? He's like the animal of the poor, the beast of burden. He's on a low level, which represents the humility, right? So, all right, good. Let me stop the recording.